Welcome back to this month's edition of 1967 Topps High Series, where we look at the cards and the players from the 1967 Topps High Series. This month we are on to card number 536, and we're doing these in sequential order. It's the first dual rookie card, and this is actually featuring the Chicago Cubs, pairing of Paul Popovich, infielder, and Joe Niekro, brother of Phil Niekro, who is in the Hall of Fame. So I move this a little bit closer so we can see it a little bit better and clear as we get closer. This card will run you starting about $40 in ungraded condition and up. So this is like one of those cards within the high series that's going to be a little bit more challenging to get. It's also a little bit of a name recognition player with Joe Niekro on there, but also Paul Popovich also played with the Cubs teams from '69. And sometimes collectors are out there that like to be able to try and get the first card of a team that's pretty significant. And so there you go, the 1969 Cubs, Paul Popovich was one of those two players. Let's do Paul Popovich first, and we'll go on to Joe Niekro because his career is obviously a little bit more of note. Paul Popovich is still with us. He was born in 1940 in Flemington, West Virginia. He was an infielder, played second and shortstop, and was a pinch hitter. Was known as Super Sub during his time with the Cubs. Debuted initially in 1964, went down for a couple seasons, but he was there to stay in '67 and played through 1975. With the Cubs, Dodgers, and Pirates, spent most of his time in Chicago. He was one of those players that actually had a negative WAR for his career. He had a negative WAR of 1.8. He amassed 403 hits, had 14 home runs, and a .233 average. Probably his biggest season of note was actually in '68, where he was a regular player, played 134 games. But after that, he was just a sub and played far less than 134 games. In fact, most seasons he was well under 100. During his time, other things of note, while he was attending West Virginia, he played baseball and also basketball. And he was a teammate of future Hall of Fame player Jerry West, which was kind of interesting. He was signed out of amateur ball in 1960, and as I mentioned, he made his debut in the very last game of the 1964 season. Obviously, we didn't see him again until 1967. So there's Paul Popovich still with us, whereas Joe Niekro, unfortunately, passed away in 2006, which was, I think, 14 years before his probably more well-known brother, who's in the Hall of Fame, Phil Niekro. Joe Niekro was born in 1944. He was born in Martin Falls, Ohio. His playing career ranged from 1967 all the way through 1988. He played for the Cubs initially, and then he moved on to the Padres, who acquired him during the expansion when they started it up in 1969. And he was brought on in a trade that they did with the Cubs at that time, so he wasn't part of the 1969 Cubs. Played for the Tigers for a couple of years during the '70s, and then spent some time with the Braves, where he got to play with his brother, which was one of the first two times he got to do that in his career. Which is kind of interesting. There was actually a pretty significant season where he and his brother both led the league in wins in the same season, while they actually were on the same team with the Atlanta Braves. And it was interesting also because they're both knuckleballers, which we'll kind of get to that a little bit too. So then he went on to the Astros, where he spent a good majority of time. He seemed like he found a home there for an extended period of time. And then moved on to the Yankees towards the end of his career, where he got reunited with his brother, who was also kind of just hanging on at that point. I think he was with him on the same team when his brother got to 300 wins, which was pretty cool. And then he actually was able to be lucky enough to be able to kind of move on to the Minnesota Twins, where he concluded his career for the last two seasons, which included actually a World Series win against the St. Louis Cardinals in 1987. So Joe Niekro, like his brother, like I mentioned, was a knuckleball pitcher, and he actually led the league, I believe, in 5 times with wild pitches. Inevitably, it was probably the majority was his knuckleball that the catchers had a hard time handling. He won 221 games during his career, but he also lost 204, so he was a 200 winner and a 200 loser. His ERA was 3.59. He struck out just over 1,700 batters, and he started 500 games in his career. He was just a one-time All-Star. As I mentioned, he was part of the '87 World Series team. Led the league once in wins, as I mentioned earlier. Probably his best season, where he had the highest WAR. He actually had a career WAR of 29.7, so not too bad. But his best season per WAR, if you will, was in 1982 when he was still in Houston, where he went 17-12, but his ERA was 2.47. He had 5 shutouts and struck out at 130. Probably his only sort of other thing of note was he actually was second in the Cy Young Award voting in 1979, which actually went to the Chicago Cubs' Bruce Sutter, who was a Hall of Fame reliever. He actually is the father of future major leaguer Lance Niekro, who played for the Giants during the 2000s. Other things that were kind of interesting about him, that he was originally signed by Cleveland, or at least drafted by Cleveland, but he didn't sign and later signed with the Cubs. So there could have been an opportunity for him to have been an Indian in his career, but that didn't necessarily happen. He actually is tied for the most career wins for the Houston Astros with Lance Durker, who was a pitcher for them as well, and later being a manager, but also a pitching coach. So he got to play with his brother twice, which was pretty cool. Unfortunately, he passed away pretty early at the age of 61 when he had a brain aneurysm. Preceded his brother, his Hall of Fame brother, by 14 years at that point. But this is Joe Niekro. Yeah, it's probably his, by far and away, his most expensive card, and had everything to do with it being a high number card within the set. That's also a super short print, but also because it's more of a name of note. You'll find that with guys that are like mid-level stars and above, they're just going to be a little bit more expensive if you're trying to put this set together. So here's a typical, you'll see these cards throughout the 67 set. Sometimes it's going to be specific to a team where they have 2 rookie stars on here. Sometimes it's going to be a league, for example. It's going to be AL rookies or NL rookies, and they have players from different teams that are featured on here. On the back of the card here, this one's probably, move this camera a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. Let me back out the camera just for a moment. As you can see, this one kind of doesn't have a really good avocado color on there. It's still the green, but it is definitely aged pretty well on the back. You'll find ones that have a much brighter tone to them. This one actually probably was kept in some way where it just kind of got, it faded over time a little bit and kind of got sort of that aging to it, if you will. But it features their minor league stats for both these players on there, and talks a little bit about them in a brief little bio, and obviously their subsequent cards they actually are featured by themselves. So Niekro, I believe, does have a 68 Cubs card, but after that he's going to be with those various other teams that we went through. So that is the Joe Niekro Paul Popovich. Looking forward to doing next month, we actually have a pitcher coming up. It's going to be a member of the New York Mets. So we'll get to that one next month. It's going to be a little while before we get to the Hall of Famers, but it'll be a lot of fun when we hit those up in the high series. And I will see you again soon.